Revealed. 7 shocking bank letters. I never expected. My lawyer's findings transformed everything. As Sarah Thompson sat in her quiet, rain-drenched living room, she could hardly grasp the magnitude of what she had uncovered. The letters had spilled from the dust-covered box like secrets waiting to be breathed back to life. She gripped the last piece of parchment, her hands shaking as she read the words written by a grandmother she barely knew. This was no ordinary family reveal. It was a revelation that threatened to shatter her entire world. The weight of potential wealth hung in the air like an oppressive fog, clouding her fierce determination to provide for her children. Deep within her, a tempest of emotions surged. Fear, greed, guilt. A trifecta that clawed at her heart. Could she embrace this startling lineage, or was it a betrayal to her hard-working roots? The thought made her stomach churn. For years she had risen before dawn, working tirelessly as a waitress to serve breakfast to the same folks who never saw beyond her apron. Nights were spent scrubbing floors in homes whose decor mocked her own struggles. Dreams were whispered into her children's ears, stories of triumph she had yet to achieve, and the whispered promises of a better tomorrow. Now, the very dreams she shined up each night were flickering like a candle in the wind. Should she chase a life that had been hidden from her? A life full of possibilities? Or cling desperately to the one that wrapped her in familiarity, but left her in financial despair? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A sudden knock at the door jolted her from her thoughts. It was Miguel, a neighbor from down the street, offering a word of encouragement and flowers from his garden. He didn't know. None of them could possibly understand what twisted within her, what had just been unearthed. The polite smile she flashed masked the whirlwind inside. Even as she accepted the gift, a part of her felt suffocated under the weight of expectation and judgment. Would they cheer or scorn if they found that she was linked to something bigger, more lucrative? What if they wanted a piece of her discovery? Her heart raced. Resentment stirred within her. How could she reconcile the image of a hard-working single mom with the nascent identity of a potential heir? As Sarah retreated back to her attic, the stale air thick with dust and memories, the final letter from the box haunted her. If her grandmother had built something significant throughout her life, then navigating this inheritance meant confronting shadows of greed in distant relatives and the incongruity of poverty she had always known. What if she risked everything for a chance at wealth, only to lose the very essence of the family values that shaped her? With trembling hands, Sarah closed her eyes, bracing for the storm that was to come. Here she stood, poised at the edge of a revelation that promised freedom, but felt like a betrayal. As tensions tightened within her, she wondered, could she balance the duality of who she was with who she could become? The choices ahead loomed like a foggy horizon, mysterious yet threatening. Would she rise against the struggles she'd always faced? Or would she vanish into them, losing her own story in the process? The next chapter of her life was about to unfold, teasing her with fortune while guarding its secrets jealously. The sun set behind the gray clouds, casting a muted light through Sarah's attic window. She sat on a creaky old chair, each groan of the wood reverberating through her thoughts like an echo of her doubts. The letters lay spread out on the table before her, each one a treasure trove of knowledge about a past she had never known. Yet each unfolded page seemed heavier than the last, imposing a weight that threatened to redefine her life entirely. A single phrase caught her eye again, one that had been repeated throughout her grandmother's correspondence. Wealth is a responsibility. What did that mean for her? The dichotomy between financial struggle and unexpected abundance gnawed at her, creating a torrent of anxiety. Was this new reality a blessing or a curse? Determined to understand it all, she drew a deep breath and positioned herself at a small desk, one lined with the countless reminders of her past. Bills, words of encouragement from her children, and old menus from the diner where she spent countless hours. Each item, mundane in appearance, wove into the fabric of her identity as a relentless survivor. Surveying the mess, she picked up a piece of paper and began to write. First, a list, the pros and cons of pursuing this inheritance. On the pro side, financial stability, a solid future for her children, an end to constant worry. But the cons loomed larger: betrayal of her values, the fear of alienation from her friends and community, the nagging thought of greed lurking beneath her desire for more. Each point she noted stung as if she were up against a mirror reflecting a life she barely recognized. As the dark creases of her past clouded her mind, a question surfaced. What did she want? The answer felt nebulous at first. She wanted to be free from financial anxiety. But what else? She flicked her pen across the paper, and suddenly a spark ignited within her. She envisioned meeting with her lawyer, a critical step towards unraveling this complicated legacy. But uncertainty still clouded her mind. Would he see her as someone who deserved this inheritance, or merely as another person looking to exploit an opportunity? The next morning, Sarah stood in front of her bathroom mirror, rehearsing her questions, reflecting on the conflicting threads of her existence. She challenged herself, seeking clarity amid the chaos. What if the wealth could empower her to do more good, to provide opportunities not just for her children, but for others like herself? Every interaction with her customers echoed through her mind. Their stories, their struggles, their resolve. Perhaps she could be a bridge between her past and this new prospect. Determination pulsed through her veins as she made her way to the lawyer's office. Last-minute doubts rose to the surface, but she pushed them aside. There was power in facing the unknown, power that she had long neglected in favor of being a cautious survivor. As she stepped into the sleek glass-walled building, swallowing her fears whole, Sarah felt the weight of every decision she had to make. Would this journey redefine her identity into something she could embrace fully? The sharp clang of a phone ringing jolted her from her thoughts as she took a seat. But beside her, the well-dressed gentleman cast an unsettling glance. There was a familiarity in his gaze, a sense that he was more than just another client. What secrets did he harbor that would intertwine with her own? Today was the beginning of a critical confrontation with her destiny. But it was just one step. The weight of her decision was heavy, and as the anticipation mounted, she could feel the air charged with a sense of inevitable conflict. The next move could make all the difference. Would she be ready to confront the shadows of greed and claim her rightful place? Or would she fall into the pit of self-doubt once more? As Sarah sat in the stark white waiting room, counting the seconds ticking away on the wall clock, her mind was a labyrinth of emotions. Anticipation, fear, and a flicker of hope swirling within her. The gentleman next to her, seemingly absorbed in his own thoughts, sparked a sense of unease. His pristine suit and polished shoes were a sharp reminder of the world she felt so markedly disconnected from. Who was he? Did his presence hold significance beyond mere coincidence? The door to the lawyer's office swung open, interrupting her thoughts. A middle-aged man, balding and bespectacled, motioned for her to enter. The warmth in his eyes hinted at familiarity, perhaps compassion, traits she desperately clung to as she stepped over the threshold, crossing into a realm that could redefine her life. "Sarah, welcome," he said, his voice a soothing balm against her anxiety. "I've reviewed the documents you sent, and I believe we have much to discuss." She followed him across the plush carpet, each step echoing her mounting unease. As the door clicked shut behind her, it felt as if her past and future collided within that small room. "First, let's address the inheritance," he began, shuffling through a stack of papers. "Your grandmother was more than just a matriarch. She was a philanthropist. The inheritance has various stipulations." Her heart raced as he continued, revealing that aside from monetary assets, her grandmother had established a small trust meant to support community initiatives, education, healthcare, and small business grants for deserving individuals. Wealth as a responsibility, indeed. This was precisely the burden her grandmother had referred to in those letters. "Sarah, you have the power to use this legacy to create waves of change," the lawyer urged, a spark igniting in his eyes. "But with wealth comes scrutiny and responsibility. Are you prepared for that?" The words washed over her like a cold shower. She felt small, unworthy even. Could she bear such immense weight? Her survival instincts whispered caution. She feared the seductive allure of money might corrupt her intentions. At that moment, doubt came rushing back, enveloping her thoughts in icy fingers. What if she couldn't live up to this legacy? What if she failed miserably at meeting the demands that came with the inheritance? "Do you have a plan, Sarah?" Her lawyer's question cut through her reverie, jolting her from her doubts. "No, not yet," she admitted, feeling exposed. "Understandable. But I urge you to consider not just what you'll inherit, but how you want to honor it. What does this legacy mean to you?" Silence stretched between them as her mind reeled. The sudden weight of introspection was overwhelming. She searched for clarity amid the chaos. Perhaps it wasn't merely about the wealth itself. What if she could transform that influx into something meaningful? A vision of her diner came to mind. The laughter, the shared stories, the connections formed amidst greasy plates and coffee cups. She had always dreamed of expanding her business, of creating a community hub. The inheritance could be more than just a financial safety net. It could be the foundation for a sanctuary. She straightened in her chair, her previous hesitance beginning to unravel. "I want to make a difference," she declared, surprising even herself. "Not just for my children, but for the community, to help others who are struggling like I have." Her lawyer nodded as if he had struck upon a vital truth. "Then let's craft a plan that aligns with that vision. You have a powerful tool in your hands." As they delved deeper into the logistics, her spirit began to lift. The prospect of using her inheritance not just for herself, but as a catalyst for transformation, reignited a flicker of purpose within her. But her reality still loomed darkly ahead. What about the scrutiny? The judgments? Would her friends understand her choices? Would she lose connections? Friendships forged in the crucible of shared struggles. The moment stretched on, and even as determination began to bloom in her heart, the shadows of her past lingered. Behind those doubts, another truth gripped her. A revelation that perhaps confronting adversity wasn't just about survival. "Sarah?" The lawyer's voice broke through her thoughts. "What's next? You have a choice here." The enormity of his words settled heavily within her. Yes, she could choose. But what path would she ultimately take? As the meeting concluded, that familiar gentleman from the waiting room crossed her mind once more. There was something unresolved between them, something that felt interconnected. What other revelations awaited her beyond the confines of this office? Stepping back into the world outside, her heart raced, not just with uncertainty, but with the first glimmers of courage. Clutching the weight of her choices, she realized the next move could threaten everything she had built. Would she transform her legacy into a force for good, or would her fear tether her to the past? In that critical moment, Sarah stood poised at the precipice of a monumental decision that could shape her identity forever. Emerging from the lawyer's office, Sarah was swallowed by the ordinary chaos of the street. The world pulsed around her in vibrant colors, yet she felt oddly disconnected, like a ghost adrift in a life that was once intimately familiar. The sunlight glinted off the car hoods, and pedestrians bustled by, wrapped in laughter and shared stories. Each shared laugh felt like a ticking clock, reminding her that time marched on, indifferent to the monumental shift taking place inside her. Cradling the weight of her decisions, she felt a swell of adrenaline rushing through her. This inherited legacy was not merely about money or status. It was a call to action, a demand to forge her path in a landscape where uncertainty reigned. But the more she pondered her path, the louder the whisper of self-doubt became. Was she ready to wield this newfound responsibility? The idea of helping others echoed in her mind. But then the fleeting visage of the polished gentleman in the waiting room filtered back in. Who was he? And what significance did he hold in her narrative? This connection, albeit nebulous, tugged at her curiosity and set her thoughts racing. Perhaps he had insight that could guide her, another piece of the puzzle waiting to be unearthed. Before she could overthink her next move, she picked up her phone, heart racing with the impulse to act. Within minutes, she found herself weaving through the streets toward her diner, the comforting scent of fried food and coffee drawing her in like a lighthouse in a fog. Stepping inside, the familiarity enveloped her like a warm embrace. Her employees were busy, the atmosphere buzzing with energy and laughter. But as she observed the scene, she felt a pang of longing, a yearning for more than just maintaining the status quo. She wanted to elevate this room full of life into something that could inspire, something that transcended her past struggles. "Sarah!" Jill, her longtime waitress, greeted her with a bright smile. "You look different today. What's up?" Taken aback by the question, Sarah hesitated, then noticed she was standing taller, every inch radiating newfound purpose. "I just had a meeting that could change everything for us," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Was it the promise of change that uplifted her spirit? A few moments later, as she settled into her usual booth, Sarah rifled through notes she'd made in the lawyer's office. Ideas for her diner danced in her mind. What if she expanded the menu to include local, sustainable produce? What if she created a space for workshops where patrons could share skills or stories? The possibilities began to grow, branching out like roots digging into fertile soil. But then came the thought that stopped her, the realization that change wouldn't come without challenges. What about the other regulars? Would they accept her transformation? Fear of judgment began to creep back, casting shadows over her optimism. Would they see her as a sellout pursuing something beyond their shared struggles? "Sarah!" A familiar voice broke through her musings. It was Mike, the local handyman, who often popped in for coffee and a chat. "What's got you lost in thought? You seem a bit intense today." She laughed softly, knowing that her internal conflict must have been written on her face. "Just trying to figure out some big decisions. You know how a single moment can change everything?" Mike nodded sagely. "I've been there. Just remember, your heart knows how to steer you right. Trust it." His words anchored her, reigniting the spark she'd felt in the lawyer's office. She realized that this journey would not just be hers alone. It was a collective venture, intertwined with the hopes and dreams of everyone who stepped through her diner's doors. With a new resolve, Sarah squared her shoulders and laid out her notes on the table. If she was going to redefine her legacy, she needed to communicate her vision clearly to her team. She could not shrink in the face of potential adversity. But as she began to paint her ideas, uncertainty resurfaced. Was she ready to face the inevitable pushback when her newfound ambition began to challenge the norm? Would confrontation breed division amongst them? Just then, the bell above the diner door chimed dramatically. Everyone turned to the entrance where the polished gentleman from the waiting room stood, perfectly poised, yet entirely out of place. The sudden silence that fell over the diner felt electric. Sarah's heart raced as the moment stretched out before her. What did his appearance imply, and how would it, intertwined with her looming decisions, ultimately alter the course of her transformation? The gentleman stepped inside, his sharp suit contrasting starkly with the diner's warm, unpretentious vibe. Sarah's pulse quickened, confusion and intrigue battling in her chest. Why was he here? Her thoughts were a whirlwind, an unexpected guest, bearing an energy that shattered her insular world. "Can I help you?" she called out, her voice fighting to maintain its steadiness. The weight of everyone's gaze was palpable. He met her eyes, an enigmatic smile barely touching his lips. "I believe we have some matters to discuss. I'm here to talk about your recent inheritance." His voice was calm, smooth, like silk drawn taut before a fracture. In an instant, Sarah's head spun. His presence felt like an interruption of the careful plans she had spun in her mind. A heavy curtain of self-doubt slipped back into place. Did she truly have the capacity to handle this new development? Sure. Would you like to sit?" She motioned to an empty booth. As the gentleman took a seat, Sarah's mind raced. This was not how she envisioned this moment. She wanted to focus on her diner, on her empowerment. Yet here he was, potentially a harbinger of complex challenges. "Can you clarify what you want to discuss?" she asked, trying to sound assertive, though uncertainty gnawed at her. His eyes reflected a sharp intelligence, as if he could dissect her every thought. "I think you know, Sarah. Your name carries weight now. Your choices will influence not just your future, but many others. Decisions regarding the diner could very well set the tone for your responsibilities to the legacy left behind." She had anticipated uncertainties, but not this level of scrutiny. "What do you mean by that?" "There are people watching, waiting for you to take a stand. You stand at the crossroads," he said firmly. "Will you use your voice to support those familiar faces in your diner, or will you become something else? Someone who merely profits from their needs?" His words pierced through her doubts, igniting a conflict within. Suddenly, the diner wasn't merely her personal retreat, but a platform laden with potential societal implications. The weight of accountability was an iron ball, but it also held a key to greater understanding. "I'm not sure what you're implying," she replied, frowning. "I'm simply trying to expand, yes. And that is commendable," he interjected. "But the moment you shift the focus from community to profit, you risk alienating those who supported you from the beginning. There is a fine line you will tread." Each word he spoke felt like a challenge. Confronted with the harsh reality of her aspirations versus the expectations of her community, the ominous sense of isolation crept back in. She was lying to herself if she thought the transition would be seamless. "And if I do nothing?" she asked cautiously. "That's a choice, too," he answered, leaning slightly closer, intensity simmering beneath his composed demeanor. "But remember, inaction may silence your heart, yet it will echo loudly in the void left by missed opportunities." Sarah bristled at the implication. Could her fears really mute her voice, rob her of her identity? A part of her yearned to shake off the shackles she'd worn for too long. This push towards ambition had ignited something raw within, yet now it flared dangerously close to the flames of self-doubt. "Who are you exactly?" she asked, wanting to expose his intentions, to challenge the foundation upon which he stood. "I'm simply a conduit of what lies ahead for you," he replied coolly. "A glimpse into potential ramifications. The decisions that unfold will shape not only your future, but the very foundations of this community you hold dear." In that moment, Sarah's gaze drifted across the diner. She watched Jill pouring coffee, Mike laughing with a regular, and the essence of life buzzing all around them. Her thoughts crystallized. This wasn't just about her success. It was about them, too. But before she could reach a conclusion, amid her storm of thoughts, a familiar unease knotted in her chest. What if he was right? What if her ambitions would indeed change everything? The polished gentleman smiled once more, as if sensing the shift in her resolve. Your next action will tell the world who you are, Sarah. And with that, he stood, leaving her suspended in turmoil, caught between fear and possibility. The gravity of his words bore down as the door swung shut, left alone with her shattered expectations and the expectations of those surrounding her. Sarah wondered how she would navigate this unruly maze ahead. As a low hum of chatter flooded back into her consciousness, a storm of fear collided with a burgeoning determination. The bell rang again. The world outside beckoned. Would she forge ahead boldly, or retreat into the safety of the familiar? Her heart thundered as she swore she would not retreat. Not now. Not ever. She had to confront this crossroad head-on. As she took a deep breath, her mind whispered a troubling question. Could she truly balance her newfound ambition with the weight of legacy? Sarah's resolve was a tender flame flickering in a tempest. She surveyed her diner anew, noting the familiar sights. The worn, comfortable booths and the rustic decor that served as a testament to countless shared moments. Her heart raced as determination wrestled with apprehension. This was her sanctuary, her creation, and now it held the potential for something grander. But she needed clarity, navigating the shadows of doubt that twisted around her ideals. The gentleman's words echoed relentlessly in her mind. Each syllable ignited a primal instinct to defend her vision. The weight of her choices grew heavier, settling uncomfortably on her shoulders. No longer could she hide behind the simplicity of her initial ambitions. She moved toward the kitchen, the heartbeat of the diner. Jill looked up from the coffee pot, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. Everything okay, Sarah? Yeah, just thinking about the future, Sarah replied, forcing a smile to break through the turbulent sea inside her. Planning big changes? Jill asked, wiping her hands on her apron, her youthful enthusiasm radiating an infectious energy. Something like that. Sarah hesitated, choosing her words carefully. The waitress deserved honesty, so she continued. I need to make some decisions that might alter how we do things around here. Jill's brow furrowed slightly. As long as we're still together in whatever comes next, I'm all in. Just don't forget where we started, all right? The simple loyalty in her friend's words reaffirmed Sarah's responsibility to those who believed in her from the beginning. But could she rise to the challenge without losing sight of what mattered most? Minutes passed, and Sarah's thoughts raced. She couldn't ignore the gnawing urgency to confront her inheritance's implications. Returning to her office, she sank into her chair, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She needed a plan, not just about maximizing profits, but about building a foundation for sustaining her community. The gent's words had sparked an idea. She wanted this diner to thrive in a way that uplifted the lives within its walls. Next came research. She began crafting a strategy. How could she meld ambition with empathy? What genuine changes could invigorate the diner while honoring its legacy? A small cafe out in the community had turned a profit through innovative tie-ups with local farmers. Perhaps something similar could work for her. As she typed, her heart pounded with a newfound vigor. Each keystroke felt like a promise to herself. If she were to lead, she would need more than ambition. She would need wisdom and collaboration. Suddenly, Sarah remembered her friend Marcus, a local who had studied business management. He had often shared insights on sustainable practices. Was it time to bring him into her inner circle? With a burst of determination, she picked up her phone, thumb hovering over Marcus's name. The prospect of opening herself up to someone else's expertise thrilled her, yet a flicker of hesitation lingered. What if he didn't share her vision? What if he questioned her decisions? However, she pushed through that fear, understanding that growth often demanded vulnerability. "Hey, Marcus, can we meet up? I could really use your business insight on something new I'm contemplating," she said, her voice steady despite the fluttering of anxiety. "Absolutely. I'd love to help. Just let me know when," he responded with evident enthusiasm. As she hung up, a strange mix of exhilaration and trepidation washed over her. What she was about to embark on could redefine everything she knew, but even as elation surged, dread coiled tightly around her. Was she setting herself up for disappointment? What if her plans failed? The thought clawed at the edges of her resolve. Sarah's introspection paused as she faced the empty diner, its walls echoing the voices of those who had shaped her journey thus far. Her path was lined with shadows that burgeoned with potential risks and rewards. The next step loomed ahead, pulsing with a charged energy she had yet to fully understand. The moment of truth was near. Would she trust herself enough to stride boldly into the unknown, or linger in the safety of complacency? As uncertainty blended with determination, she dared to look beyond the familiar. Could her willingness to adapt and learn reveal a strength she had yet to discover? Marcus arrived promptly at the diner the next day, his sharp presence instantly charging the atmosphere. In a casual outfit that suggested both comfort and professionalism, he scanned the room, a genuine smile breaking across his face as he locked eyes with Sarah. The anticipation bubbling within her surged forward as he approached, and she felt the weight of her decisions bearing down on her chest. "Hey, Sarah. Thanks for bringing me in," he said, pulling out a chair and settling into it with an eagerness that felt reassuring. "Let's dive into this vision of yours." She hesitated momentarily, overwhelmed by the torrent of ideas swirling in her mind. It was one thing to conceptualize changes alone. It was something else entirely to articulate them to someone who might challenge her assumptions. However, his enthusiasm was infectious. Taking a breath, she leaned forward, ready to embrace the moment. "I want to transform this diner, make it a hub for community engagement while also enhancing profitability. I just don't know where to start." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "That's ambitious, but you're on the right track already. Let's break it down. Who do you envision as your main customers? And what local relationships can we build?" As she spoke, she noticed how easily the words flowed when he prompted her. "Regulars, sure, but also people who might appreciate local produce and artisanal options," Sarah explained, her voice gaining strength. "I've seen that a nearby cafe flourished by working with local farmers. Sourcing ingredients directly connects customers to the community. The farm-to-table approach is becoming really popular," Marcus interjected, leaning in. "If we can cultivate those partnerships effectively, we could create a unique selling proposition. But it's not just about sourcing. Branding becomes essential." Sarah nodded vigorously. The storm inside began to feel more like a guided current. Each suggestion he made sparked a new idea in her. What if we featured rotating specials that highlighted different farms each week? It could be a way to give customers a dynamic experience. Brilliant! It keeps the menu exciting and encourages customer loyalty. Plus, it aligns with sustainability. People love supporting local businesses. A fire ignited within her as they sketched ideas on a napkin, the diner transforming into a think tank, rather than just the home of her everyday challenges. But as concepts morphed into potential realities, an unsettling thought pierced her enthusiasm. What if their well-crafted plan unraveled? The stakes felt higher with every beat of her heart. "I need to ensure that our venture doesn't alienate my current customers," she said cautiously, feeling the need to voice her deeper fears. What if they don't embrace this change? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Change is intimidating, but it can also be liberating. You'll want to bring your existing customers along for the ride. Maybe hold a launch event to introduce them to the new concept? A chance to share their thoughts could create a sense of ownership. The idea of an event lit up Sarah's mind, but anxiety wove itself around the thought like a vine. What if they don't respond well? What if we fail? Failing is part of the process, Sarah. But look at it this way. You're already showing growth by reaching out for help. That's a major leap in itself. His reassurance held weight, grounding her spiraling thoughts. She felt a rush of resolve. Marcus was reigniting her original vision and pushing her edge. You're right, she said, her voice firmer now. Every step is essential. Failure, success. All of it is part of growth. As they drew more plans, a blend of excitement and fear roiled within her. Sarah was unlocking layers of courage she hadn't previously recognized. What began as a small plan was morphing into a full-blown enterprise that could change the diner's destiny. But the question lived silently in the back of her mind, looming larger with every new insight shared between them. Could she handle the pressure of transforming not only her diner, but herself in the process? A sudden thought halted her. Marcus, what if I face opposition from the community? There are long-standing traditions to consider. There will always be someone hesitant to change, he replied thoughtfully. But if you approach it with care and transparency, you can win their hearts. You'll need to lead with both conviction and empathy. Sarah's determination surged once more as she gestured toward her diner. It was time for rebirth, and she felt ready. But a new fear slithered into her mind. What if her desire for change invited dissent? Revisiting her doubts about the diner's evolution, she realized the true test of her leadership wouldn't come from the vision she had, but from how she addressed the potential backlash. In this mutating landscape of risk and aspiration, she resolved to change but also prepared to confront head-on the obstacles that lay ahead. The stage was set, the pot was boiling, and just as she felt ready to take the plunge, an unexpected figure appeared at the door. A former patron whose discontent was palpable, their presence signaling a challenge that threatened to derail everything she had just begun constructing. Sarah's breath quickened. The time had come to face the criticism looming over her ambitions. Would she stand firm in her convictions, or would uncertainty unravel her vision? A heavy silence enveloped the diner as Sarah's gaze locked onto the newcomer. The figure wore a frown that matched the dark clouds of doubt now gathering in her mind. She couldn't dismiss the discomfort that unfurled within her. This wasn't just a former patron. It was Ron, a long-standing member of the diner's loyal customer base. His presence meant more than just an individual voice of dissent. It suggested that there was more at stake than she had previously recognized. "Ron!" she greeted, trying to infuse her voice with a blend of warmth and professionalism, her interior churning at the sight of him. "What brings you here?" His eyes, narrowed with skepticism, swept over the tables as if gauging the years of history rooted within them. "I've heard some talk about changes. Big ones. Is it true you're thinking about changing everything we love about this place?" The confidence she had felt moments before wavered. She had envisioned this interaction, had rehearsed it in her mind. But now that it was real, the weight of her plans pressed heavily on her shoulders. "I believe we can make it even better while still preserving what's special," she replied, her words tinged with a defensive edge. Ron crossed his arms, his stance dictating a strong resistance to change. "But what does that even mean for us? What if your better isn't what we want? We come here for the familiarity, for the comfort food. We don't want a flash-in-the-pan gourmet experience." His words hung in the air, and Sarah's mind raced. She realized that every doubt she had buried within was now surfacing as legitimate concerns in his voice. "I understand where you're coming from, but we're not replacing anything," she said, her heart pounding as she attempted to narrate her vision amidst an unexpected opposition. "I want to enhance our menu with local flavors without losing the dishes we all love. We can celebrate our roots while expanding our horizons." "Sounds great on paper," he said sharply, his skepticism stinging. "But are you ready for the pushback if this new idea falls flat? You know the community takes pride in what you have here." A sly anger bubbled beneath the surface, and Sarah fought against it. He was right. Her vision could risk the very structure she was trying to build upon, and yet she couldn't wane in her commitment. "Every successful change comes with a period of discomfort," she said, her voice steadying with resolve. "I need the support of loyal customers like you, Ron. I need your insight to ensure we're not straying too far from our roots." The tension in the diner crescendoed as patrons flicked their eyes towards the confrontation unfolding. Each gaze felt like judgment, heightening the stakes of Sarah's position. She had to present not just ideas, but a strategy to mediate this storm. What if she faltered against this challenge? Ron's expression softened slightly, a flicker of understanding glinting in his eyes, but not nearly enough to sell his agreement. "You can't expect everyone to jump on the bandwagon just because you're excited. Change takes time, and trust is earned." His words struck her deeply, forcing her to confront her own source of confidence. Did she really have a plan that would cushion the shift she envisioned? Or was it simply enthusiasm without a strong foundation? She could see that the diner's atmosphere depended not just on positive action, but on creating trust through transition. This was a moment that could define her path forward. "I won't impose change without your feedback," she said with earnest intent. "I'll set up meetings to ensure your voices are heard. Still, I hope you can acknowledge growth is necessary if we want to thrive in an ever-evolving landscape." The tension hung pregnant between them, his brows furrowing as he contemplated her offer. They were at an impasse, a pivotal moment that could either draw more supporters to her vision or strengthen the voices against her. What would happen if she overshot the balance? Silence settled as Ron scrutinized her sincerity. A slight nod from him would either be a key to her new beginnings or a decisive point of contention. The diner felt smaller, encasing her in a web of expectations and ambitions as she awaited his response, the atmosphere rife with anticipation. But the looming question in her heart reverberated loudly. Was she truly ready to engage in a deeper dialogue that could reveal not only the desires of her customers, but also the depth of her own vulnerabilities? Would she dare expose herself not just as the owner but as a team member willing to listen? Willing to. As Sarah balanced on the precipice of change and resistance, she realized the real test awaited her in the next conversation. As Ron began to open his mouth, her heart raced. She was on the verge of confrontation and revelation. Would he act as an ally, or would he represent the gale winds against her ship of dreams? The moment hung suspended in the air, pregnant with uncertainty. Sarah held her breath, her heart racing as Ron considered her proposal. His deep-set brows remained furrowed, analyzing her sincerity like a seasoned investigator on the cusp of an important breakthrough. The weight of expectations from the patrons around them pressed upon her back, and she fought the impulse to look away. Finally, Ron exhaled, his expression softening just enough to let Sarah know she'd made some headway. "I appreciate you wanting to include us, but I'm still skeptical. Your idea may resonate with some, but I doubt it'll thrill the regulars like me." There was a hint of vulnerability in Ron's tone, one that nearly brought her to the brink of sweet relief. But instead of responding with gratitude, she felt anger flicker in her chest. How could he not see the vision she was laying out? Tearing her gaze away from him, she focused on the patrons behind him, their eyes wide with curiosity and judgment. She could sense their internal debates, weighing the prospect of a new menu against the nostalgia of their favorites. Did she have a winning strategy? And more importantly, was it enough to win back not just Ron, but an entire community? Just give it a chance, Ron. She found herself saying, her tone growing more passionate. If we don't adapt, we'll fade away. But I don't want to lose the essence of what brought us together in the first place. The urgency in her voice surprised even her. She felt as if she were reaching out into a void, hoping the thread she was spinning would catch on somewhere. His gaze pierced through her bravado. And what if it unravels? What if this adaptation strips away everything that makes this diner home for us? Her heart sank. The ache of doubt clawed at her resolve. All those years, the laughter, the connections, the meals shared, all seemed now more fragile than she had ever understood. The emotion bubbled up, threatening to bubble over. She thought of each meal they had served, the late nights and the endless conversations with customers. This diner was her life's work and love. She couldn't let it slip away easily. "I'm willing to fight for this diner," she said quietly, the determination seeping into her words. "But I need you on my side. We can preserve what matters while walking towards a brighter future." Ron stared at her with a mixture of skepticism and something softer. Could it be recognition? That's all fine and good, but trust takes time. You're talking about change without really understanding us and what we cherish. Caught between her fervor and his empirical stance, Sarah felt cornered. What she raged against wasn't just Ron's doubt, but the very real challenge of leadership, to juggle respect for tradition with the necessity of innovation. She suddenly realized she needed to do more than go through the motions. She needed to connect on a deeper level, not just present her ideas. "I want to understand what you cherish about this diner," she stated with newfound clarity. "Let's meet next week, just the regulars and me. We can talk, brainstorm ideas together. I want to establish a committee of sorts. Your feedback will be invaluable." The determination in her voice seemed to grow roots, anchoring itself in the open air between them. Ron hesitated, then nodded slowly, his expression softening. "I'll give you that. But don't think all reservations will disappear overnight." Sarah felt a rush of gratitude mingled with tension. She'd made progress, but not victory. As the diner buzzed back to life around them, she realized she'd ignited a spark, and those flames were only just beginning to rise. With a newfound sense of purpose, Sarah began to plot the next steps. The meeting would be crucial, yet it would require her to navigate her fears and uncertainties. Would she be able to facilitate a collaborative environment that still held fast to her vision? And what if, in engaging her customers, she uncovered more of her own hesitations about change? As she returned to the kitchen, ready to dive into the familiar rhythm of orders and the sizzle of pans, Sarah felt both exhilarated and terrified. The path ahead teemed with opportunities and daunting challenges alike. What new truths might she discover not only about her customers, but about herself? And as she prepared for the meeting, one question nestled in her thoughts. Could she truly balance the weight of tradition with her desire for growth? Or would she find herself caught between the two, unable to forge a new path forward? In the days that followed, anticipation electrified the atmosphere of the diner. Sarah poured herself into the plan, each decision meticulously thought out, but a core uncertainty lingered. Was she prepared to navigate the challenges ahead? The meeting path was set, but her mind raced with the potential fallout from her transformative ambitions. However, she steeled herself, believing the dialogue could unite rather than divide. That Friday, as the clock ticked closer to the gathering, Sarah transformed the back room of the diner into a welcoming space, adorned with strings of lights and a large whiteboard to capture the brainstormed visions. She was ready. It was not just the logistics of the upcoming changes she was eager about. It was the commitment to forging connections and understanding what truly mattered to her community. As the regulars trickled in, a mix of apprehension and excitement flooded the room. Ron stood at the back, arms crossed, his expression skeptical but intrigued. Sarah greeted each patron warmly, knowing this would be a defining moment. Leverage would come not just from her vision but also through listening to the fears and hopes of those who had shared meals, laughter, and trials within these walls. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "I know change can be daunting, but I see this restaurant as our home, evolving to meet the needs of our community." An awkward silence followed. Sarah pushed through, drawing strength from the supportive whispers of her familiar patrons. "I want this diner to reflect not just my dreams, but yours as well. So let's discuss the changes I'm considering and hear your thoughts." As discussions unfolded, the spikes of tension fluttered into poetry. Patrons voiced concerns about losing their beloved comfort foods, paired with ideas for new menu items. Grilled local vegetables, artisanal pies, specialty coffees made from beans roasted by a neighbor. Ideas flowed. The room buzzed with collaborative energy. Ron finally spoke up, articulating concerns while acknowledging the importance of fresh ideas. His voice held a vulnerability that resonated with others. "We cherish the traditions, but if you bring us along on this journey, I think we could embrace some changes. Just don't forget what made us fall in love with this diner in the first place." This shift unveiled a path forward. Sarah had unlocked not a resistance to change, but a dialogue worth having. Each voice held value, and in that moment, she recognized the community as her greatest asset. The meeting transformed from a mere presentation to a heartwarming reunion of aspirations, rich with their collective shared history and dreams. As the meeting came to a close, a surge of confidence blossomed within Sarah. She outlined a plan for a soft launch of new menu items, coupled with old favorites, ensuring regulars would not feel discarded. Each dish would carry clarity about its origin, connecting to local farmers and artisans. Transparency would reign supreme, incorporating her vision while truly honoring the past. As she looked around the room, the smiling faces and nods of approval ignited a fire within. She wasn't just sustaining a business. She was building a legacy of community engagement, local pride, and mutual growth. Tangible success wasn't merely about profit margins, but forging connections that reinforced the diner's soul. The next weeks unfolded at a whirlwind pace. With robust support from regulars eager to see new offerings, Sarah navigated the evolving restaurant landscape while grounding her decisions in clarity. Collaborations flourished, partnerships formed with nearby farmers invigorated the diner's menu, and the vibrant community began embracing the vision she was cultivating. Moreover, Sarah's personal transformation verified a deeply rooted belief. Holding steadfast to her values not only elevated her diner, but also crafted her identity in a way she never anticipated. Money and success no longer felt like corrupting forces, but tools to amplify her community's voice. When the time came to fully launch the new menu, an evening awaited with bated breath, Sarah gazed across the bustling diner, vibrant laughter blending with the sound of clinking silverware. She felt embodied confidence. She was not merely a waitress threading through life, but a leader carrying a vision molded by the very people she served. The diners buzzed with excitement. It felt like a festival of unity, a celebration of the diner's rich heritage, now intertwined with a promise for the future. Their approval was palpable. Their joy was a validation. And as she stepped back to observe, Sarah grinned, heart swelling with pride. The once tangled web of uncertainty had unraveled into a thread of success binding them all together. The identity she had feared losing had instead been fortified. She had transcended from a survivor to a leader, embracing her power to enact change, and propelling her legacy forward. Through those shared meals and laughter, she had not only taken charge of her inheritance, but learned that true wealth lay in communal values, intertwined with aspirations. Sarah had transformed, She had conquered fear, nurtured hope, and created a vibrant tapestry of her newfound identity. As she took a deep breath, surveying the diner, she proved to herself that growth was a lifelong journey, one that she would continue to embrace. In that moment, Sarah Thompson stepped firmly into her role, not only as a business owner, but as a true matriarch of her community, ready to drive further connections, illuminate paths, and build a legacy fit for generations to come. Now, as you reflect on this incredible story of transformation, remember, the journey of overcoming obstacles is just as enriching as the destination. You need to subscribe now for more exclusive emotional stories that inspire and transform lives. You have to leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and keep this momentum going. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to recognize their potential to conquer their own obstacles. Your support fuels these powerful narratives. Join our community today.